Hi, David Odell here with Odell Complete Concrete. Today's the first day on this job site, and what we're going to do is remove and replace this concrete driveway. And here's a nice aerial, and you can see from the aerial view that the top of the driveway is wider than the bottom. It's really only about 6 inches, but that aerial view really enhanced it. The reason we're replacing it is because you can see the trip hazard there, how it lifted. It was most likely from that tree right over there. But once we open this up, we'll really know what's going on underneath the concrete and why it lifted. And this concrete's breaking up really easily. It's not that thick, and it's not a high PSI. There's no reinforcement in it, any steel whatsoever, so all those contributing factors makes it easy to remove. The ground is pretty soft too. Fortunately, I have this lightweight mini skid steer on a track, so I'm not doing a lot of damage to the subgrade really. I'm not sinking in, not getting stuck. Probably if it was a tire loader with solid tires, you have some problem moving forward and scooping because the tires would want to spin and bury yourself. But with this little unit, you get full power forward in pretty much any terrain. We did a 2-loader here. The first 2 sections was 1 load. About 3,500 pounds, I would say. A little more than that. We also have a sewer clean out on that one side. You can see it sticking up there. We're going to cut that down, flush it out to top of concrete, put an easy access brass cap on it. And because once I opened this baby up and I noticed the soil conditions, I went ahead and got some road base, crushed concrete, basically is what that is. So all the concrete I'm removing. Now if I had a crusher on site, I could have crushed what I removed, and then I'd have base, my own base, and no disposal, which is a nice combination. And that's what you'd see on a big job site. The concrete that comes out, they make into the base to utilize it over again. But in this case, the size of it doesn't really warrant, having a crusher out here to break your concrete and make base. So we're just importing it. But we did find out what the cause of that problem was. You notice all the roots that were under the driveway. We removed them all. We dug it down about 6-8 inches. I used a tooth bucket and grabbed all those roots and pulled them right out. It was soft. It's a soft material. I think it's a rubber tree. Actually, it's a magnolia tree, but pretty soft material. Though the way to compact this is by letting the water soak in after you spray it and then compacting. But in a lot of cases on a big job site scenario, what you would do is turn all your material with a large tractor while hitting it with a water truck, and then spread it wet so it's all consistently wet all the way throughout. Then you can really do get some good compaction. But we're going a small lift here, so this is going to be really adequate here. We're only doing like about a 2-inch lift of base in here. And then what we're going to do is just bring the forms down exactly where they were before. And it was pretty easy to tell where they were. That because the apron approach is offset to the entrance of the driveway, which happens in a lot of cases. But we're going to go with the same pattern. We want to hit the bottom of the wings on that apron approach. is you have 3-foot angle on each side of the entrance, and we're in 3 feet on each end with the actual driveway. We are going to do a diamond grid saw cut with a full perimeter 1-foot border, all saw cut pattern. And this is going to make it kind of tricky to lay out because it's not a perfect rectangle. It's, like I said earlier, it's smaller at the end towards the street than it is at the top. So we have to visually make it look good and everything fit perfectly. And that's when you got to kind of play with your lines a little bit. And we'll show that in the end. But here's that easy access brass cup for the sewer clean out. I have a screed laying across from the top of the forms, so I want to set that flush to the top of driveway. Had to do some little tricky modifications here to make it all work. So we have a threaded female inside that 4-inch. And then we're going to go ahead and put this on top of it so you can drive over it, and then you have access to that screw in, that mill cap there. And I'll just cover it with some tape to protect the surface while we're pouring. Now there's a lot of cracks in that driveway. I think the roots are under, cracks in the garage floor. A lot of cracks in there, and I think the same tree roots are under that garage floor that were underneath the driveway. Here we have some nice deepened, what I like to call earth teeth, or it could be known as a keyway, because I'm locking it in underneath the sidewalk so I don't want it to pop up or change elevations. We got the big boy Olin. That's what we're going to pump it in here with. I could almost tailgate this. The only problem is because of the elevation change, with the truck sitting at the bottom of the street and all the chutes on to reach back here, the concrete's not going to flow down the chute. It's going to all build up in the chute and come out on the street. So I went with the pump to avoid that problem. So as we pour this out, you can see how stiff that is. I mean, this is going in at about 4-inch, 4.5-inch slump on a scale of 1 to 12, 12 being the wettest. Anything over a 6, throw away, of course. Also, we dumped some fiber mesh in here too. On top of the steel reinforcement, 3/8 bars at 2-foot center, we have the fiber mesh additive in here. Have both of my sons here today in this particular project. This isn't a straight slope either, by the way. It's actually crowned in the middle, following the contour of the land. Which is nice, because at the top where the sidewalk meets the driveway, you want less slope up there. Otherwise, your cross slope on your sidewalk that adjoins the driveway is going to be really intense. Well, that's what it looks like after you get her laid down. That's just after the bull float. Pumps leaving the job site, which is nice because now we can get full access to the driveway with all of our tools that have poles on it, and bull floated uphill. So we already bull floated it crosswise. Now we're going the other direction, which is optimal. Whenever you can bull float your work in 2 directions, you're going to get a flatter surface. We have some expansion foam there at the top. And the main reason is because I don't want the cracks to reflect from that garage floor, and I think that garage floor is going to be coming out fairly soon, so we've isolated the two separately from each other. Here's a 12-inch wide, half-inch radius walking edger. Now we've got the fiberglass funny float. So at this point what we've done is bull floated it two directions, and now we've got the fiberglass funny float going on. And these are especially good when you have concrete in this kind of contour where you have a lot of shape in it, where it's not a straight slope, it's not flat, so the funny float really follows the contour of the land in this situation. And right behind that funny float you'll notice we have the funny trowel, and they work beautifully together because what happens is the funny float brings up the cream and flattens, then you get a nice finish when you hit it with some steel right behind it, because you're just pushing pure cream. And then what we're going to try to do is get away with just a funny trowel and then broom it. We don't really want to get out there by hand if we don't have to. If we can do it from all the pull tools, you know, it's always nicer. It was a windy day today too. I don't know if you noticed that, but we had a lot of leaves blowing out there, a lot of cut grass, a lot of debris blowing out there. And as we work the concrete, we can see stuff in the concrete, so we just pluck it out of there, because otherwise it'll work its way out in the future and then leave a hole. It's not a structural problem, but it's just not that nice visibly. And that's why that blower, see that DeWalt blower, cordless at the bottom of the driveway, we use that to keep blowing the debris off the top of the concrete. We've already pulled the tape off of the sewer clean out. And this particular broom is 50% nylon and 50% horsehair. Really nice combination. Well, I'm pretty much dry brooming this. The only reason I'm using water is to clean it in between a few strokes, and then I'll slap the water out of it and drop it back down on the slab. Up here near the top it was a little wetter, so we waited on that a little while before we put our final broom on it. There it is. This is 2 days later after the pour. We're back on it, snapping some lines out, laying out a grid. So what we did, because we had that issue with it being on a skew, this whole driveway, is we established a center line, measured the width of the top and bottom, dropped the center line, even though the measurements are different from the top to the bottom. We're just going to work off the center line. And then also what I did to make up for that difference is I shortened my bands. Like at the bottom, the bands are about an inch narrower than at the top. That way I made up for some of that, because the driveway was narrower at the bottom. And now we can get some nice cuts in here where they'll all intersect exactly on the band. We're cutting about 3/4 of an inch deep. And this is the Medusa by Skillsaw. And we paired it with the DeWalt cordless vacuum. Dual HEPA filters in there. It picks up pretty much about 90% of all the dust with this combination. So you don't have to worry about, when you wash this, you don't have to worry about a slurry field going down the street, in other words. Now I have the right angle grinder, 4-inch blade, just touching up the corners, intersecting it to the bands. And if you notice, every square hits exactly on the band line. So it made it easy to continue the joints on through, because I only had 1 point to pick up off of 2 lines. So this really turned out beautiful. Well, there it is, the best driveway in the neighborhood. Let's get a nice aerial view here, see what we're dealing with. That's a little flyover with a drone. This will all cure out even in probably 30 days. Anyway, thank you for watching and have a good day.